Welcome to another episode of Ask Me Anything. Yes, I am the guy who spent 19 years in prison before receiving conditional pardon, and also I'm a lot more than that. I'm a brother, I'm a son, I'm an employer, I'm a neighbor, I'm a jujitsu player, I'm all these things in all different roles in my life, and so these are questions that were sent in response to the last video I made. The first one is, what is my favorite genre of music? I never understand how people answer that in just like one thing, because to me it really depends upon the mood. If I'm sad or I'm nostalgic, I want like old Etta James or blues or something that just kind of like pulls that sadness out of me, lets me like kind of feel it in waves. If I'm happy, it's ska or Dave Matthews Band or something upbeat or something that just makes me want to dance. If I'm working out, I want something like heavy and driving and emotional, something that inspires me. So it really just depends. I really like all kinds of music. I mean, I don't think I like polka. That's the one thing I haven't really connected to, but otherwise I feel like there's a time and a place and a mood for pretty much any type of music. What is my favorite singer or band? Again, the same thing. It depends on the mood, but I think probably the singer or the artist that I've connected with the most over time that has made me feel the most things or made me feel the most like inspired has been Brandy Carlisle, because her songs are just masterpieces. Like, she is one of the greatest songwriters ever. Her voice conveys emotion better than almost anybody I've ever heard, and I've been able to hear her live in concert, and I have never felt so much. I cried, I laughed, I danced. I remember just feeling full. It was like one of the most full emotional experiences I'd ever had as part of a performance. It's my favorite boy band, and also a side question, is Metallica a boy band? Which I don't really know. When I think of a boy band, I think of like young and kind of poppy and usually like overproduced, and I don't know that I really like a boy band. I think when I was younger, I didn't want to admit that I like pop music. I didn't want to admit that it was kind of enjoyable or cool. But the reality is, I mean, I can get down with anything. I think one of the coolest things I saw was a guy, it was at a comedy show. He had a QR code tattooed on his arm. And he was like, yeah, man, check it out. It's my way of picking up chicks. You scan it and it goes straight to Spotify to like NSYNC or I don't remember what the song was, but it's just like one of those catchy pop songs. I remember thinking, like, that's dedication, but also that's a really cool bar trick. Like, I get it. So I don't know that I have a favorite boy band, but at the same time, again, I can pretty much get down with any music if I'm in the right mood and the right space. It's important to know who my favorite metal band is. You know, I don't really know. I was never really into metal. I liked Metallica when I was younger. I liked some of the other bands. I liked more kind of like classic rock. Like, I was a really big Aerosmith fan when I was a kid. Again, I think it's just really the music that I connected with. You know, against Rage Against the Machine is what I always go to, and they're not really metal, but they're like that kind of like punk metal, like just alt. I don't even know how you describe it. It's like, it's the alternative to something clean and something like produced. It's just something that felt real. I really always loved them. My favorite candy, I really like Starlight Mint. I really like peanut M&Ms. I really like, I don't know, just the good chocolate or like really good caramel. I like that. Or really good fudge. My kind of adopted mother, she makes fudge every year. And oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. It's probably the worst thing for the body, but oh my God, for the mind and the soul, it's pretty much up there. My favorite non-alcoholic drink. Mostly I just drink water or coffee, like honestly. I do some of the like hydration things or like the hydration packs or drink protein powder or have BCAAs that I try to drink before a workout or, you know, as kind of a fuel for a workout. I mean, I'll try anything. I love juices. I love different anything. Again, to me, the world is still kind of like magical and new. So people are like, what's your favorite food? And I'm like, the food that's right in front of me that tastes good, because that's all I can think about. And I don't really want to lose that. I'm sure I will to some degree, but I want to stay in that place where I can just enjoy where I'm at rather than always thinking there's something better or there's something over there. A place I want to visit and why. I want to visit Iceland and I want to visit Scotland. They're the first two that come to mind, and for a different reason than the next one I'll say. Iceland, it's just from the pictures and the videos I've seen, one of the most beautiful, shocking places on earth. And actually, I was in prison with a guy from Iceland who said he loved it. He talked about the community, the acceptance, just the way it was. And I remember thinking like, okay, that sounds really cool. Scotland only because I never really had an interest there. I'm not really connected to the history, but I have never met a person who visited Scotland who didn't say this was the most amazing experience of my life and I want to go back. Every single person said that. So I don't know what it is, but I want to find out what that magic is. I'd like to visit Costa Rica because my father expatriated and moved down there before he died. And you know, I was in prison. Well, actually, I was in prison when he died, but I kind of want to see where he lived and what his experience was. Like, I want to know what it was like to live in that like rural village and what it was like. I don't know, because it's been 20 years. I haven't been able to connect to that, and I'd like to see. What do I do to blow off steam? God, that really depends. I think in the past I've had really unhealthy habits, and it's definitely easy to fall into a pattern of like wanting to like just kind of remove stress or just like have things go away. Sometimes I exercise. Sometimes I do jujitsu or I go hit the bag. Sometimes I go out with friends. Sometimes I go for a walk. Sometimes I'll go ride a motorcycle. But I will be completely honest, riding a motorcycle to blow off steam, probably not the best idea unless you're on a track. Just like does not inspire the best decisions. So I wouldn't recommend it. Where do I find peace after a rush day? Now I think that's a more important question because it's not about blowing off steam. I think sometimes it's on the couch. I just have to like close my eyes and turn my brain off and take 20 minutes or 30 minutes and just like lay there. Because I feel like my mind is constantly going and I'm constantly worried about things or I'm constantly going through things. And I really just have to stop. and breathe. It was why meditation was so impactful for me, because for the first time in my life, I felt like I could actually pause, and I wasn't just running nonstop. I wasn't completely out of control, and I wasn't always responding to stimulus. I could just kind of sit there and allow it to wash over me. Additionally, I think the woods or water. There's a trail in Charlottesville that I like to go walk on, very close to my house. I'll go down there and I'll just go walk, and then I'll go sit by the water. And there's something so calming about sitting by the water. Or sometimes I'll go up to the mountains and I'll just go sit at one of the overlooks, and you just look at this thing that's so beautiful. I like to be in a place that reminds me of how small I am, because it's really easy to think that we're like very important, or the decisions we're making are very important, when ultimately those decisions are not. I said this the other day and somebody was like, no, I don't think we're small. I think we're the biggest thing in the universe. And I think that both are kind of true. I don't think our egos or the decisions we're making about our small lives are that important. I think that we need to realize we're not that important. That this thing we're so stressed about right now is not going to matter in 5 years, probably not even going to matter in 5 minutes. But at the same time, I do believe that, as Rumi said, he said, you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a single drop. And I believe that. I do believe that the human experience, I believe that consciousness is one of the most beautiful, powerful expressions of life that is. And I think that it's all encompassing. And it sounds very very hokey or spiritual, but I've had some really amazing experiences that led me to believe that that's just the truth. My favorite subject in school, I'm trying to think. I was always really good at math. I never liked history. That's what's so funny is the other part of this question was, do I enjoy history tours in cities I visit? I do like history, but I like it kind of abstractly. I like it in a way that I can relate to, rather than abstractly. I don't really like just names and dates. Like, what is the story? What is a human element? Like, how do I connect to this? It's one of the reasons I really like architecture, because it's real and it's physical. I can walk into that church in New York or in wherever and just feel the kind of height of it. But I can also imagine like the people that had to lift these stones up, or how this had to happen. I'm really drawn to, I guess, human stories and human experience. And so anything about that. It's why I like psychology. It's why I like sociology. It's not the science of it. Like, I always found a problem with the theories. Like, oh, the theory, and you just apply this, and like, no, this is like a framework through which to see the world, but it isn't the world. And we forget that sometimes. So I think I always try to find the things that allow me to connect with the human story, or connect with what feels like the kind of like story of people as a whole. Top 5 bucket list activities. Man, I don't know. Because again, I'm at that point where everything is special. Like, people will be like, I can't wait to go hike Kilimanjaro. Like, cool. I mean, that'd be great. I'd love to do it. But I don't feel especially drawn to that, because I don't know that I would feel any more alive or any more connected in that place than I would here, or with a friend in California, or surfing, or swimming, or I just don't know. I don't really have any activities. Like, some people say, I want to bungee jump, or I want to skydive before I die. I don't really care. If I have the opportunity, it would be cool. I would like to, race motorcycles on a track where it's like safe and I don't have to worry about hurting myself. But if I don't feel like I'll have missed anything. I go back and forth on whether I want a family or not, because again, I just feel like I'm struggling to deal with my own stuff, like just take care of myself as an adult in the world. And I feel I'm so critical of parents who just like jump into things. And some people do an amazing job. They jump in totally unprepared and they show up for their kids, but so many people don't. So many people jump in unprepared and they mess their kids up. They don't give them the love and security and support they need. And that's horrendous. I would rather not do that to a child, not bring a child into the world, than do that. So I'm very conscious about that. Part of me, I think, would say one day I want to have a family, or one day I want to just be an uncle, or one day I just want to like have an impact in the world. But again, I think that that's kind of abstract thinking, because the reality is I have an impact on the world every day, for better or worse, whether it's small or great. It's that interaction I have at the gym with somebody. It's that interaction I have with somebody at the grocery store. It's a person I talked to on the street earlier today. And, sometimes that's big. Sometimes it's on a stage. It's a great opportunity. I'm going to speak in Nashville this weekend. Sometimes it's small, and I don't think it really matters. I don't think there's a right answer there. So I don't really know. I don't know what my bucket list is. I think my bucket list is to engage in every moment and every opportunity that's in front of me, and maybe create some more in the future when I feel drawn to them. But I don't think that it's something that I planned out. I think it's what's going to develop, or what's going to come organically out of the life that I'm living. Favorite cuss word. So I love this. One of my friends on social media, who's really big and who got a huge book deal and who's amazing, she did a friends only video where she's like, I'm just here to say like F face, just cussed like crazy. And I've met her in person, and let me tell you, that's who she is. But everybody thinks she's this like sweet angel of a person, and she is. She is caring and loving and kind. She's also a human being, and I love cuss words. So I tend to not cuss on videos, or try not to cuss on videos, because I realize that the audience is going to necessarily be, or is probably going to be, either attracted to or turned off by that. And my goal is to connect with the broadest base of people possible. So I do cuss sometimes in my personal life. I do cuss when I drop something on my toe, or I do cuss when I'm really upset, or I do cuss just for emphasis sometimes. That was actually Greg, the serial killer I lived with. That was one of his life lessons from Vietnam that I thought was so impactful. He says, you never raise your voice and you never cuss. So that way, when you raise your voice and you cuss, they know you're serious. And he used this in the context of saying he had to keep his troops alive, because he was went over there as a lieutenant, second lieutenant, first lieutenant, I guess captain, and then I think he actually even got elevated beyond that. But so he was always leading troops, and he said, you need to make sure they know when that button is pressed. Like when you're joking around or something's minor, but like when it is life and death, they need to know. And the way to do that is to reserve when you raise your voice and when you cuss. And I guess that's also kind of impacted me. So some of it's not wanting to turn an audience off or turn people off, because I want to connect with people. I want to share stories, and I don't want them to feel like, oh, I'm going to judge him for this. On the other hand, I do think it's important to have that button we can press when things get really bad so people know this is serious. So yeah, I'm not going to answer that, but I probably do have favorite cuss words. But again, I think it would just be the one that was right in the moment. My favorite cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, hands down. There's no right or wrong with cereal, and I do like a lot of them. I have like some really natural, like hippie cereals. My dad always ate granola, and I enjoyed that as a kid. But Cinnamon Toast Crunch, for whatever reason, is just my favorite thing. And we used to get this milk. Oh my God, I remember this. It was just like whole natural milk that would like have cream in it. So it was like super thick and creamy. It's just better than the kind of like normal pasteurized, I don't know, processed milk you get at the store. I love that stuff. That and Cinnamon Toast Crunch, it just felt like joy in a bowl that I could just like sip on and take spoonfuls of. Do I sleep with the fan on or off? And somebody says this is important because there is a right answer. I would say that depends on the temperature in the room. So in my apartment, for example, I try not to spend too much on electricity, spend too much on plumbing. So I try to conserve. So I keep the temperature fairly high. I've had like girlfriends or people stay over who are like, no, we need to have it at this or that. I don't really care, but I mean, generally I like having the fan on for the noise and the kind of airflow because it makes me feel like I can put another cover on or another sheet on and be a little bit warmer. I was always that kid who I would literally open the window in the middle of the night to feel the cold in winter and then be able to bundle up that more. It helped me sleep. It helped me feel safe in some strange kind of way. Finally, if someone was going to play me in a movie, who would I want that to be? So when I was a kid, for whatever reason, I thought I was going to be a model because this woman came up and said she wanted to do a modeling photo and she was going to present them. And I didn't know what that meant. I just thought, hey, somebody thinks I'm like attractive or have value. And I thought that was amazing. When I showed those pictures, a lot of people said, hey, you look like Timothy Chalamet, who I didn't even know who that was until somebody pointed out, I think Dune. So I don't really know. I don't have an actor that I feel like lines up with me necessarily. I do feel like I would want somebody who could kind of convey the message because it's really easy to take a story and twist it, whether you're the one narrating it or telling it or acting it. And I think the important thing is if they ever were to do a movie, and I just signed a book deal, so hypothetically a movie could be possible, I would want to make sure that people really focus on the kind of vulnerability and the flawed nature of it. Because I think a lot of times we'll be like, oh, this person's a hero and they've turned their life around. Like, man, we are all struggling. We are all just scrambling to get by. And even when we accomplish something great, it's usually because we're suffering from imposter syndrome. We don't feel like we're doing enough or doing it hard enough or well enough or fast enough. And it's also, I think, one of those things where I've never met anybody who's just like accomplished something and be like, all right, cool, this was perfect. Now, I have had moments of great like contentment or great satisfaction or like being proud of things, but I feel like I've always been driven. And I think honestly, that's just like trauma. That's kind of an unhealthy response. But the good that comes out of that is the drive to always do better and more. And I am trying to get to the point where I can put that down. I do dream of a day where I don't get up in the morning and feel frantic or feel compulsive or feel like there's so many things I have to accomplish because I can be at peace, because I can know in my heart that I'm enough. I can know in my heart that I don't need to do something to be okay or to be lovable or to be valued. And at the core, I'm worried about doing enough to make money. How am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to, accomplish this thing? How am I going to raise enough money for the nonprofit that we can serve a greater population? It always feels like there's a pressure, and I do want to get to a point where that's not the life that I'm living, but I think that's a balance. I think the reality is we're always going to struggle with something. There's a kind of public philosopher, psychologist, who I don't generally like, but he said something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I've talked to a couple people about this. He said, we have to have genuine adventures in our life or we'll create basically made up ones. And I think about that because I had a lot of really special, amazing adventures when I had those challenges, those things in front of me, and I was engaged. And it's those moments where I'm kind of like static, where I'm bored or I'm not challenged or I'm not engaged, that things are different. Like that's, I think, where people go when they become like incels and they just hate women because they don't get attention, because they don't have the adventure of like learning to talk to people and fail and be embarrassed and be uncomfortable. And like, that's a scary thing when you're a kid, especially if you're like an insecure kid. And I think that so much of the negativity and the hatred and the prejudice we have comes from not having genuine adventures. So I think that if somebody was going to play me in a movie, this is my very long answer, I would want them to be as vulnerable as possible and highlight that much good as there is, as much bad as there is, as much pain as there is, as much joy as there is, it's all just a scramble. Like we are all just struggling to get by. And yeah, that would be great. I would love for somebody to play me in a movie. And if you know somebody, please let me know and I'll see if I can reach out to them. I send DMs to random people all the time. Why not? I've actually been surprised by the number of people who are like kind of celebrities who follow me on social media. It's been really bizarre because some of them respond right away. I'm sending them like, oh, is this really you or is this your publisher? Some of them get right back to me. They're like, yeah, it's me, man. I love this. This is great. Other people never get back to me. Other people are like, yeah, I'm so-and-so's publicist. Like if you ever want to do a project, do this. this. It's just weird because I don't think we ever thought that was possible. Like, we could never just reach out to a Hollywood celebrity, before the internet. And now we can. And it doesn't always work, but sometimes it does. And it's kind of cool to have some of those conversations. So that was the latest edition of Ask Me Anything. If you have more questions, you can email them to me. You can send them to me on other social media platforms because obviously YouTube doesn't make it as easy. But let me know. I'm always happy to answer these questions, and I'm always happy to get to know people. And again, I'm still hoping that people will join me on the cruise in November. I think the end of the sign up is the end of April. So hope we can get it together. I hope everyone is doing well, and I will talk to you soon.